You're listening to LeaderCast, episode 183. Welcome to LeaderCast, Transforming Missions podcast with Tim Bias and Sarah Thomas, providing you with insights and resources you need to lead a movement of Jesus followers.
Sarah, we're talking about rest, relaxation, and play. That's good for summer months like June and July. And in part of our conversations, we were talking about even stories in the Bible. And one of them that you reminded me of is with the disciples praying with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And all Jesus wanted them to do was just pray with me 1 hour while I go over here and pray. And he comes back, and what are they doing?
Sleeping.
They're asleep. They're asleep. So I began to think that maybe to be the best followers of Jesus we can be, or to be the kind of people that we've been created to be, is that maybe we need to get some rest or find a way to relax. Because when we're really being called upon to be in the kind of ministry that's needed, we don't need to be sleeping through it. So part of being effective leaders isn't that we don't get sleep. It's just that when we sleep is important, and how we rest is important, and how we play is important. So that's part of what we're going to talk about today, right?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about what makes rest and relaxation possible. And we don't know all that was happening with the disciples, but we've all been where the disciples are at. And so part of our hope is the couple of things that we'll share with you today might help you make rest and relaxation a little bit more possible. And we would have gladly helped the disciples too, but we weren't alive 2,000 years ago. So let me remind you before we go any farther that you can find show notes for this episode at transformingmission.org/podcast. Or to go directly to this episode, simply go to transformingmission.org/183 and look for some things on social media. We usually post in the evening on Facebook around 8:45 and in the morning on Instagram about 8:45. There might be a few surprises throughout these next couple of months. We want to have fun. And after all, it is social media. Okay, back to the episode, Tim. So we're going to share 2 ways to make rest, relaxation, and play possible, and 2 suggestions for how you can act on that. So what's the first one, Tim?
Well, Sarah, we've talked about getting rid of the tyranny of the urgent. It's kind of like we've become, we're so much a part of the culture of the now. If it doesn't happen right now, it's not important. It's not going to happen.
So everything from drive-through to pick up our food, to Amazon 2-day delivery, to our cell phones expecting an immediate response. I'm pointing to those things and saying those things have shaped us in such a way that we think everything has to happen now. But the reality is most things don't need to happen right now. Here's something that I've started doing because I noticed that my cell phone was interrupting me every 10 minutes. I'll leave my phone in another room when I'm working. Hello, working from home. So I leave my phone in a different place. It doesn't have to be right in front of me, because you know what? If something is really, really urgent, I know people will get in touch with me.
And we also know that even in the work that we do, we sometimes become captive to the emergency or to the interruptions that say, you need to take care of me now. I have this little image in my mind, Sarah, that there are times when something happens, there's a little person on my shoulder that says, this needs to be taken care of now. This needs to be taken care of now. And on the other side, it says, it's not as urgent as you think it is.
Yeah. And really, there are very few things in life that do need to be tended to now. Death and illness. And even when it comes to those 2 things, I'm thinking of the roles that many of our listeners play. If you sit down and have dinner with your family before you call the family to make arrangements for a funeral, really.
I'll say it. It's okay.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
okay.
So maybe providing an example that is not ministry related will help with this one. This past month, I've been helping my mom and dad shop for a new computer, and in the midst of all of that, my dad's CPAP machine ended up dying. And so the very same week, we ordered the computer, and my mom also had to order a new CPAP machine for my dad. Now, Tim, you've heard a little bit of the backstory on this. Which one of those was needed now, and which one of those could we wait on? The CPAP machine, there was an urgency to it. If you don't know what a CPAP machine is, the CPAP helps folks with sleep apnea. And so part of what's been happening is he hasn't been sleeping well, neither is my mom. But the computer, would they like it yesterday? Of course. But it's not going to be delivered for a month. So one of those things is much more urgent than the other, but we have a tendency to make all things, I need it yesterday. So here's our suggestion on this one. Learn to ask the question, when do you need this by? Or say something like, knowing what is on your plate and what you need to get done, I can get you this in 2 weeks. Will that be okay? If you set the expectation for people, they're not expecting to hear from you tomorrow. And if they need it sooner, then they can say, well, is there any chance next week you can get it to me? And maybe the answer for you will be yes, and maybe it will be no. But do you see what I've done there? You've put parameters on that so it doesn't have to be, as Tim said, the tyranny of the urgent. Anything else you want to say about that one, Tim?
You've covered it well. It just comes to the place where I'm thinking of those disciples again. I don't think any of them would have said, we're going to go with Jesus so we can sleep through the prayer meeting. But if we're not caring for ourselves with the parameters that we need, we end up missing what we need to be experiencing.
Yeah, and so you're getting to number 2. And that's plan so that you can rest and relax. And the reality is what is on our calendar and what gets scheduled is what is going to get done. And the example that I've given to a couple of people recently on this one is we'll put meetings on the calendar, but not time to prepare for that meeting. And so the night before the meeting, we go, oh crap, I have to prepare for that meeting. But you haven't allowed time for it. Or preaching, we know, comes every 7 days. But is there time on your calendar to prepare for the message? Or one of my favorites, you plan out meals, but somebody needs to do the shopping. Or actually, for me, it's I'll do the shopping and then somebody needs to prepare the meals.
Let me go back to the one about you're going to preach every week, but you don't set aside time to prepare. It might be that you start with that in a negative way, and what I'm saying is that you got to be prepared for Sunday morning, but Saturday night you say is not the time to prepare.
Exactly.
So when else are you going to prepare? That's giving yourself a break. And making what's important.
Yeah. And so our suggestion on this one is time blocking. And without going into a full explanation of what time blocking is when it comes to managing your calendar, let me just give you an example. There are 3 things that every week are on my calendar as time blocks. One of those is podcast editing. One of those is coaching, and one of those is communication, or things that we need to get out for the district. The other one that happens occasionally is time off. Each one of those areas of my responsibility, I have time on my calendar every week. So when it comes to coaching calls, I have specific times set aside on my calendar that the people that I coach can sign up for one of those times. And I always say to them, if the times don't work, just reach out. We'll find another time. And guess what? I've been doing this since 2016, and maybe once or twice it's happened because we've had to reschedule something. But what that did for me is I now know where on my calendar that's going to happen. And I've put it at times on my calendar that both work for my flow of work and I know also works for the people that I'm coaching. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Sarah, would you say that with time blocking, that it's just as important to schedule the time off and rest as it is the coaching calls and the sermon preparation and all the other things? I mean, if being an effective leader means that you are a rested leader, shouldn't that be as important in the schedule?
Absolutely. If that time is not on your calendar, it's likely not going to happen. And I know for me, if I'm preparing, this happened at the beginning of the month, when I was preparing to be off work for a week, the weeks before, there were extra things that I needed to do so that I could be off the grid that week. And so again, if we're not planning so that you can rest, relax, and play, it's probably not going to happen. And we're going to get to how play gets pushed out of our schedules on another episode. But actually, we said that there were two, and we have a bonus. And the bonus is to reframe your expectation of play. Play doesn't have to be something that is a grand vacation or time in an escape room or axe throwing or playing cornhole or something that is organized. It can simply be going for a walk. It could be grabbing a container of bubbles and blowing them with your grandkids. The point is to build play into your daily life. So, heck, have a little fun. Eat dessert first. It can be simple. So that's the bonus. And now you all are going to have dessert first before you eat your meal tonight. And I hope you will.
So the bonus tied with the time blocking. There was a time in my life, Sarah, where I didn't have time to walk, just to take a walk. I was just too busy to take a walk. And now I've got time set aside where I walk every day. I plan other work around the walk because I have found out now that the walk is important. Not only, it's important to my health, and that's all around health. And so I found a way to say, this is as important as any of the phone calls, any of the visits, any of the meetings that I'm a part of.
Yeah. And hearing you say that, what comes to mind, Tim, is the yeah buts. And I'm thinking of specifically my nieces who, yeah, but the kids need to eat and the kids need to get down and they need a bath. And so I only say that to say at different seasons in our lives, this is going to look different for different people. And what you've just named, Tim, is a specific season in your life where you're able to do that and you've come to a place that you can do that and you've chosen to make it happen. This isn't about doing exactly what Tim or Sarah say you should do. This is about us giving examples. Maybe that's an easier way to say it.
And not to make this any longer than it needs to be, but I remember when Evan, my son, was 10, I remember the meeting, the administrative board meeting, it was still administrative board then, that I was in, and said, my son just turned 10. He's playing Little League Baseball. And so there'll be some meetings I'll not be able to attend because I'll be with him. Now, I remember how afraid I was to say that because I'd given my life to the church, and so the church took everything I would give to it. But, there wasn't a person sitting around the table that said, well, you can't do that. They all said, that's wonderful. We'll plan our meetings for when you're here.
Right. Again, and that's exactly what happens when we communicate and set expectations around what can and can't happen. So anything else that we need to mention for this episode before I share our write it down, talk it out, or rest and play?
You've given me plenty of time to talk about the things I needed to talk about. Let's go.
Okay. Here are your questions for this week, and we've already alluded to them. Where can you practice asking, when do you need this by? Second question, what do you need to time block on your calendar? Do it! And 3, what will you do today that's fun? As a reminder, you can find show notes for this episode, including those questions, at transformingmission.org/183. And remember, who you are is how you lead. Bye for now.